You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Yep, it's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee, DJ Envy is still at Disney World. And we got a guy who can never seem to get all three of us together here. My man, David Johns.
Third time I'll be in charge.
What's happening, my brother?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back.
Well, yes, David Johns. Last time you were here, we had a discussion about, National HIV Testing Day, and I'm so glad that we are actually doing something because that is going down tomorrow.
Yes. At the Juice Bar, we are really proud to partner with you, the National Black Justice Coalition, to host a free HIV testing event. The last time I was here, we had the chance to talk about National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, it will be National HIV Testing Day. So it's a chance for us to, again, raise awareness, ensure that we increase prevention, support people who are affected by HIV, and otherwise just move through the stigma and the shame.
So it's free HIV testing. You get to find out while you're there.
That's right.
I don't want
That's
that.
right.
I like the old school way of waiting 2 weeks.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Writing down all your sexual partners, praying, you know what I mean? Giving all your tithes and offerings. I don't want it right there on the spot.
No, it is important to know now, immediately, in particular so that folks can get connected to care. Mm-hmm. And if you're not affected by HIV, again, if you're not positive, you're virally suppressed or whatever, there are opportunities to talk about prevention as well.
Why does it seem to me like people don't take HIV as seriously as they used to?
I think at least two reasons. One is because if you're white in America, HIV is not the death sentence it used to be, right? There have been decades since '86 when the epidemic was introduced. There have been targeted and thoughtful and consistent investments in white communities so that they had access to PrEP and PEP, so that people who were living with HIV had their viral load suppressed. For white people in general, it is not a big deal, but for Black folks, for Latinx folks, for poor people, for people for whom English is not their first language, we don't even have conversations about sex, let alone prevention and treatment. In particular, one thing that I didn't get to talk about last time is how women, Black, straight, heterosexual women are affected by HIV, right? So generally we know now since 2015 that rates have decreased, right, for the average population. They've gone down 8%, but for Black women, they're still going up. And that's in part because Black women are not equipped with the language or supported in having the space to even engage in conversations with their heterosexual partners about what they're doing, whether that's maybe possibly having sex with somebody else, maybe even using intravenous drugs. We don't even have that conversation. We don't talk about how some people get HIV perinatally, right? They're just born with it. In general, in our communities, there's so much shame and stigma surrounding sex, sexuality, anything that would otherwise be seen as perverted or deviant. You know this, being from South Carolina, all this religious trauma is now technically a designation by the American Psychological Association. So there's still a lot of work to do, which is why it's important. And I'll say thank you again for creating space like this, just for us to talk about it.
Right.
Now, you said straight heterosexual women have it, Black women. I've heard that for so long. Do we know why?
There are at least three reasons why. And the first one is, again, because we live in a society that doesn't affirm having conversations about affirmative consensual sex, period. And too often women, Black women, who are made to be the mules of our community, who hold space for so many of us, are just not given the space or the language to have conversations with their partners like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. In particular, in our community, we don't want to talk about bisexuality. We don't want to talk about sexual fluidity. And so what that means is that people make a lot of assumptions, right? He loved me. He looked clean. All the stereotypical stuff that people used to say that they shouldn't say anymore. And there's a hope and a prayer rather than asking, look, what are you doing to keep yourself safe?
Yeah. Ever since I read that book back in the day, On the Down Low.
That book will continue to be a problem in our community. I love our godmother Oprah, but she did us dirty on that one. But no, we have to have more conversations about the fact that things aren't as black and white as they otherwise might appear, right? I say that acknowledging the shirt that I have on today.
Boss shirt, I need that.
I appreciate that. I want to talk about it too.
Yeah, there are a lot of men who experiment with their sexuality, and women, it seems like, are a lot more free to talk about that.
Yeah.
And it's not looked at the same as when a man might have done something and then he never wants to admit it. It's ashamed and people make fun of it, or they don't want to tell a woman what it is that they've really done.
Yeah, that's right. We live in a society that still fetishizes the idea that women can be with women, but to the extent that it pleases a man.
Right.
Right. We even think about Sister Janelle Monáe and what she's been able to do with her powerful, groundbreaking album and even just centering conversations about sexual fluidity. She's still celebrated because for most straight heterosexual man, I'm doing this in scare quotes because I think the categories don't really exist, she at some point could still be something that they objectify or otherwise fetishize, right? But for folks for whom they are not women, they otherwise are not fantasizing that way, what's seen as different is too often thought of as queer in ways that just don't make sense given how we show up in society. People try lots of things. People go in and out of relationships. People have things that they do over time. And the important thing for me is that no matter how you show up, you should feel safe, engaged, and supported. And in particular, when engaged in intimate relationships, we should all be healthy.
Now, how often should you get tested?
I get tested every 3 months. I think everyone should be. You say you tried it.
You single.
You saying he's
yes.
out there
having
Right.
fun.
You saw the shade, right? No,
I'm
trying to live, brother. I do this work because I believe in Black people. I believe in our freedom, and a part of that is ensuring that I am healthy, happy, and whole. So for me, it's every 3 months. I think at a minimum, it should be every 6 months. If you are a member of a community that is disproportionately affected by not only HIV, but other STIs, sexually transmitted infections like gonorrhea or syphilis, which can contribute to the likelihood of contracting HIV, it should happen with more frequency. And so specifically that's Black and Latino men who have sex with men, gay men, bisexual men, Black cis heterosexual women who are in non-monogamous relationships, as well as our trans folks and gender non-conforming members.
What if you're married and faithful?
I think you should have some real honest conversations frequently about what that means and the extent to which your faithfulness might include inviting other things into your relationship that would make it so that you should be on PrEP or otherwise maybe using condoms or doing things to ensure that you're protected.
Somehow all these married faithful people end up with side babies and
Listen,
stuff.
let's talk about it, right? That's why I said, again, just be real honest.
Exactly.
That's why I said have the conversation.
Now, I got a homeboy who's a hoe.
Okay.
And I always tell him, I say,
You want me to call him in here?
maybe, I don't know, maybe. But I always say, you just on a hunt for HIV.
I wouldn't even say, listen,
it
is not, this is not about people who are out here in these streets. All it takes is, I want to be honest, all it takes is one time. I've had in the last 2 weeks, 3 people in my circle call me who are not HIV positive.
Yikes.
2 of them in long-term relationships and 1 of them who wasn't. Right? And this, again, is not about being reckless. To be clear, there's data that affirms the fact that Black people, in spite of the fact that we are disproportionately affected by HIV, we're not having more sex. We're not having more condomless sex. We live in environments where we're just exposed to things more than other people in other communities. And so this is really about having open, honest, consistent conversations about what people are doing. Right? And it's hard. I get that. People are not inclined to have conversations and ask people, when's the last time you've been tested? What is your status? Right? If you are positive, is your viral load suppressed? You can still thrive with HIV. Right? And so this is about normalizing it and ensuring that we're all safe.
Yeah, I just want to be clear about that because the earlier you get tested, right, then you can start getting treated and actually people can live a full, complete life.
Yep, that's exactly
and live
right.
with HIV.
Yeah, so again, it is no longer the death sentence. The 2 things that are really important, and one of the friends that I talked about, he was detected so early that he hasn't even developed antibodies, right? So an ideal situation so that he can work with his doctor to have his viral load suppressed. What that means is that if he is consistently in care, and so much of care is having the support of people who will support you and not look at you like you're crazy or otherwise stigmatized, his viral load can be so suppressed that he cannot transmit the virus to his partner, even if they're having condomless sex, right?
So that's like something Magic Johnson probably has, right?
Likely, yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I haven't had that as a mentor and a friend. I haven't had the conversation with him and CJ, but I'd like to think that they've had conversations about how it is that they both can continue to be healthy. The second point is, again, HIV is no longer the death sentence that it once was. Not only are people living with and living full, long, healthy lives with HIV, you mentioned Magic Johnson. He's an exception in this regard. He's often held up. But there are all kinds of people throughout the country that are thriving with the virus.
There's actually someone who comes to the juice bar all the time. He lives in the area, and he actually shared with me that he is HIV positive, and he's had the virus for, I think, like 20 years or something. But he said that it actually helps him a lot to eat healthier and do those things, and that's why he's been able to just be perfectly living his life. Yeah,
this is one of the reasons why Magic is so important, and people lift him up without acknowledging, too, that it's about the access to care. right? Magic had access to doctors who knew about medicine and scientific advancements before a lot of other people did. He also has the ability to have healthy eating and a healthy lifestyle. He was already an athlete, so his body was built for some of the resistance that has to happen. But what Magic has been able to do, we can all do. Again, it's about being detected early and being in consistent care, and then being surrounded by folks who will ride for you. Right. No matter what will happen, who'll go get tested with you, right? Who might crack a joke, but are going to do it in love because they care about you.
So it's not about money? So people always say, oh, Magic got money. That's why he was able
to be clear, we live in America, a capitalistic society where white privileged folks run a whole lot of shit. It's always about money. However, that's not the case with regard to care. There are pharmaceutical companies, the Center for Disease Control we work with. They have an organization of our consortium of organizations like the National Black Justice Coalition. We work together in what's called the CDC PAC to make sure people have access to the information as well as the support services. I mentioned last time being on PrEP, a pill you can take every single day to reduce the likelihood that you'll get HIV. I take it every single day. I'm in the pharmacy's office every other month trying to get the prescription. The prescription, generally, the copay is $50, but the pharmaceutical company that produces it, Gilead, makes it available for free.
So it's like a Plan B for HIV, kind of?
Not really Plan B. It's preventative, so you take it before. Yep. But it works in a similar way with regard to just working in your body so that the likelihood of you contracting HIV is diminished.
I did want to ask you about that because last time you were here, you did talk about PrEP.
That's like an ill vitamin. That's like the best vitamin.
But don't get us.
So even with taking PrEP every single day, you still get tested every 3 months.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, because this is about a healthy lifestyle, right? So the conversation I entered into with my physician when we had to have it and I had to demand PrEP was that this is a part of me being healthy, happy, and whole. So I take PrEP. I also take a vitamin D pill because I spend too much time indoors writing papers and trying to talk to white supremacists about the need to change their practices. So again, this is about being healthy.
Let's talk about your shirt. Keep the dreamers.
Amazing
shirt.
Let's talk about
the white supremacists. That's a great idea.
Send them all out. Yeah. And so I wear this shirt, and I was just in Detroit this past weekend with Jack and Jill of America. They had their regional teen conference. And two things that the young people really wanted to talk about. One was gun violence and violence in schools. And the second was, how did we get here as a country, right? How is it that every other day we're learning about another child who is killed or otherwise been a victim of systemic institutional racism? Why is it that we continue to ask them to go to school, to get good grades, to be good citizens, to be nice people? And there's literally a man occupying the White House now who has done the exact opposite of all of that. And the point that I made to them is that while they are frustrated and feel like so much of this is new, that our country has always struggled to work through the contradictions of how we were founded and how we got here, literally on the backs of children. What is happening now at our borders with this country, literally ripping families apart, is no different than when this country was initially founded. And Native American children were stolen from their families and told that they needed to assimilate. It is no different from the Children's Crusades, which centered what became the modern civil rights movement. And I did this to talk to them about the power they have in order to not only advocate for change, but to lead it. And so I truly believe this, that the thing that we should all be doing now is calling out racists like Permit Patty, the white woman that called the police on an 8-year-old little girl who was selling water. I just rolled past a couple of boys selling Gatorade and gave them a whole lot of money and told them to be safe. But calling out racists and literally making it difficult for them to stand in their bullshit.
What do you think about what Maxine Waters had to say about what we should be doing? Like if you're a restaurant owner, if you see somebody that's part of Donald Trump's staff and making them uncomfortable, harassing them, not serving them. What do you think about that? Because she got some backlash.
She did get backlash. I support anything that Auntie Maxine ever wants to do, period. I want to say that. I love the space she's in now and that we're acknowledging her, but she's been fighting these fights for a lot longer than I've been alive, that most of us have been alive. So she could say whatever she wants to say, and I'm here for it. But I think she's right. As people of color, as members of continually oppressed communities, we have to build up a resistance in order to be uncomfortable. And I think the thing that white people, privileged white people, don't experience and take for granted until these moments are that they also can experience this as well. So we have to be really careful. We don't have the same protections by law generally, right? We could also talk about the Masterpiece Supreme Court case and what that has done in order to make it even more difficult for us to be protected by law. But I think ensuring that people know that their bullshit is not okay is really important.
But that's why I'm torn by that, though, because I totally agree we should make them feel uncomfortable, but they can we can keep them out of restaurants, but they can make it bad for us in the country.
Yeah,
you know
they already are. That's not gonna change.
But
so,
we don't want to go back and forth with a tit for tat with them.
Sometimes it's okay to be petty, and I think it's all about being strategic.
I agree,
right? I'm not saying doing it every day.
I agree, as long as everybody's ready for the smoke that comes with it. Because when Trump says things like, "Maxine, be careful what you wish for," that's just a dog whistle to his supporters. Like, okay. Because they're going to be violent.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so as long as everybody ready for the smoke.
We got to be strategic. We both share Eugene. Eugene is Angela's right hand. Eugene has this theory that, like, we just need to be armed and ready to go.
I agree.
I've got a friend, Iffy, on our podcast. They were talking about us being close to a civil war. I don't think we're there, but the thing that I struggle with that Angela often says is for too long, there have been so many of us that said if we were alive, right, during the modern civil rights movement or at other periods in our history, the nadir, for example, maybe we would have done something different, and we now have that moment.
Yeah.
I think people are going to be pushed. I think some are ready for whatever it's going to take in order for all of us to be free. And for me, it's just all hands on deck thing. I got friends that are ready to go to jail. I got friends that got bail money. I think it's just about us all being strategic.
And I think every black person in America should just go out, buy a firearm, and go learn how to
register for the NRA.
Register. I don't know for the NRA. Like they have.
Register. Fuck it. That'll be the thing that'll make them uncomfortable.
I agree with that too. But they got black organizations, black gun organizations as well.
We can do all of the above.
All of the above. Go learn to shoot. You know what I'm saying? Teach your wives how to shoot. Teach your boyfriends how to shoot. I feel like everybody should go do that. I think we should just all one day.
Yeah, let's
just get up and go. One mass.
I'm down for it.
Exodus of buying guns. Everybody
it's
like, why
crazy because I've always
guns?
been so uncomfortable with guns. Like I've never wanted to own a gun or have a gun on me because I grew up in New York, in Brooklyn. Like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
But what I'm saying is it always was like, if you get caught with a gun here, you're going to jail automatically. And I know it's different when you can register and have a gun, but I've always been uncomfortable with guns.
Somebody asked the young people in Detroit.
Everybody has a gun in Detroit.
And so that was a part of it, right? It's
true.
like, why should people have guns? Should it be okay if you are hunting and gaming, right? Like a lot of people offer that up. Should it be okay if you want to have protection, or should just the police have it? And overwhelmingly, all of those young people just said, we don't need them, period. Right? Like the kinds of sport that people want to engage in where they got to shoot things or people, go get a damn virtual reality machine is what they offer, right? Like they literally are talking about there's no reason why we need any of this, in particular the kind of minutia that police and other folks have. And so I live for the day where we could move to another part of the conversation. The hardest thing for me is young people were real clear about the damage that guns cause. They're also really clear about the fact that you can get guns in anywhere. Like they literally said to the sheriff and the superintendent, if you think the metal detectors keep guns out of our school, then you are kidding yourselves. Like, we know how to get them in. We know how to pass them to each other. We know how to separate shit and put it back together and do it quickly. If we want to, we will make it happen. Is the point that we're making. I just
saw the story about the kid that found a gun on the sofa in IKEA, and I guess it fell out of somebody's pocket, and the kid picked it up and shot the gun in IKEA.
Listen, Linda.
Jesus Christ. I still feel like everybody should practice their 2A rights, though.
Especially
black and brown people.
I think that's
I really do.
I think that's right. Yep. And also be equipped to be able to engage when the police or other state-sanctioned actors end up engaging with us as well. So not only knowing how to shoot, but knowing your rights and how to enforce them as well.
Did you call them state-sanctioned actors?
Yep.
What is that?
It refers to anybody who is operating as a state agent, who is attempting to perpetuate privilege. So this includes school resource officers or police officers in schools, sheriffs and police officers who have badges, as well as folks like the asshole that shot Trayvon, who just made himself appointed officer of the state.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't believe he's still alive, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you.
He looked like he living a miserable ass life, though.
But he's still living, and that's the hardest part. Yeah,
I want him to suffer forever.
I believe he is suffering. But
I want him to continue to suffer and be in pain every single day of his life, and be harassed and be an outcast and be a disgusting, vile.
Listen, I'm glad we're talking like this because I feel like for too long, black people and brown people, the best thing about us is that we are so morally sound. Yeah. And that we do have a lot of empathy. But it comes a point in time we got to just be like, fuck it.
You know, today's
fuck it and fuck them.
You know, today's National Forgiveness Day. What are your thoughts on forgiveness?
I have none to give right now in this moment. not to like I again. I mean, we're laughing about it in this moment, but I keep thinking about Antoine Rose. And hate him or love him, I appreciate that Sean King is somebody who's putting out things that otherwise don't get put out. And he posted a video the other day where you can literally hear a white man saying, "Kill that nigger," out of a window, like no context for what's going on, like just no regard for that boy's humanity, for his life at all. And so unless and until white people in particular start to think about other people's kids as their own, and we do a better job of protecting all children, I will save my forgiveness for folks who actually need it.
That's real. You still pursuing your PhD from Columbia?
I am. Y'all pray for me. Pray for my spirit.
We'll you getting harder or easier?
I think, the thing about a PhD, I think that anyone, especially anyone of color who has the ability to do it, should do it. I'm a student of Du Bois, and he talked about that as being one of our responsibilities. For me, it was a selfish pursuit. I'm back at Columbia pursuing a PhD in sociology and education policy, really to leverage the master tools against him and the entire apparatus. And so while the work is challenging, it's work that I love. It's self-directed. It is about how we center students who are most neglected and ignored in schools and with regard to curriculum. And I know that once my research is complete, I'll have a whole lot of fun.
Gotcha.
Do you get a lot of people antagonizing you, like on social media or anything like that, just because of what you do for a living?
I get people who try it, yes. And on occasion, I will accept an invitation to dance or to tango. But I try, and I'm swift with the block button. I'm also clear that is a part of the work, right? That there are going to be people who will attempt to distract me, but there's so much work to do. So I'll focus that energy in other ways, including trying to make sure that people are free.
Well, we have a lot of work to do ourselves, so I'm going to get tested tomorrow as well.
I will get tested tomorrow as well again.
Okay, and I also read 1 out of 7 people with HIV don't even know that they are HIV positive.
That's exactly right.
So it's really important for people to get out there, find out if you do indeed have HIV. It's not the end of the world.
It is
you
not.
Can get
Quite the opposite.
And the earlier that you catch it,
the better.
The better it is for you.
That's right. And it's free. If you want to find a testing center in your community, you can go to our website, nbjc.org. If you put in your zip code, we'll find a center near you where you can go for free. If you're in Brooklyn tomorrow, 2 to 7, come out to the Juice Bar after hours, who does testing in Brooklyn. They also do a lot of stuff around opioid addiction as well, acknowledging that that's a problem in our community as well. So they're going to be on site. But all across the country, there'll be lots of organizations doing similar work.
That's great. We'll make sure we let everybody know. And
what's the address of the Juice Bar? 277
Malcolm X Boulevard, Juices for Life. You can find us, Juices for Life BK. And David, thank you so much. I'm glad we got it together. And I know it's been almost a year since you've been executive director of the National Black Justice Coalition. So how is that going?
It's going well. The thing that I have held on to recently is the case of Anthony Wall. I was talking about Antoine Rose. I know you all had our sister Tamika here with Keisha Clemens. Anthony Wall is a young black man. Most people don't know his name, but if you saw the young black boy in a tuxedo being choked by a punk-ass police officer after Waffle House, you know Anthony Wall, 22, Warsaw, North Carolina, took his sister and her friends to prom. There ain't shit to do in Warsaw late at night, so they went to the Waffle House. And the practice at Waffle House, I should say Awful House is what we need to call it, because the shit is horrible, the food is disgusting, and they don't like black people. But he was standing next to a table, and people were so mad that he was literally taking up space, that they were black bodies taking up space, that they started calling him all kind of things. Anthony was called a nigger. He was called a faggot. Again, our organization exists to end racism as well as homophobia. And Anthony's life has been irreparably changed as a result of this. He was choked by, again, a police officer literally twice his size. He was fighting for his life, thinking about the tape that he sent me of a black boy who was handcuffed and then tased by police officers. He felt like if this man handcuffed him, he was going to die. Right. He was slammed against the ground. He's been out of work for some time. He has physical disabilities now, let alone the psychic trauma that one has to endure. I get mad watching the video thinking about him being me, right? Like, I have a younger sister. She got a slick mouth. She don't take no shit. And what I know is that if she gets into it, it's my obligation as her big brother to get into it too. Right. And so as a result of simply taking up space and asking for a manager, the thing that really pissed people off is that Anthony said, call a manager. When the police was acting crazy, he said, call a supervisor. Again, black people demanded things, taking up space. And his life has changed. And so we have joined with the movement for Keisha Clemens to ask for all black folks, Latino folks, poor folks, folks that live in the South to boycott Awful House. There's no reason why we should be there. The food sucks. It's much better to go to Juices for Life or Juice Bar or something else. Healthy. Or to have your people cook for you, right? That's another thing that I think about too, especially in the South. Like, we got away from that. The second thing, and we saw this after there was a couple in Florida that had a similar incident, right? The Awful House cashier charged them more. They asked about the discrepancy. The police were then called,
Fair question to ask.
Fair ass question.
Yeah.
This is what it says on the menu. This is what you charged me. Explain the difference, right? But white people call the police like they do customer service. The police were called. The man was arrested. Waffle House issued a apology to him, but they have not done the same for Chiquisha or Anthony. So we're asking for a public apology to be given to the two of them. Again, given that they had their humanity stripped and called into question publicly.
Yeah, you said something to me that hit me just now too, because it's like I don't think police officers understand when they put us in those situations. We are thinking it's a matter of life and death. Especially based off everything we've been seeing over the past few years.
Yeah,
like,
they don't
think
care.
They realize
no,
that.
I think they do. I won't say that. There's some research that says that for a majority of police officers, when they see black and brown bodies, in particular male bodies, they see us as animals. Right? Like it is a psychological thing that happens as one becomes a police officer and or again adopts to be an actor of the state. And I think that they have to appreciate it. In that moment, what Anthony talked about is that when those police officers entered into that restaurant, they asked the white people what happened and then charged at them. There was never a question, what's your side of it, sir? Like, how did we get here? Like, it was a turnaround. You are now under arrest. Similarly, we saw that in the video. Chiquisha experienced the beginning stages of rape.
Gosh. That was awful.
100%.
Like, let's just be clear about it.
100%.
As a man, I
100%.
think about this now, having spent time with Kiki's mom, right? Like girl, she's a young woman. 3 grown-ass white men who have daughters and mothers and sisters who just show up in the world as people essentially began to rape her.
I said that when I saw the video.
Tape.
Like, this is sexual assault.
Period.
Breast out, like,
yeah, and threw her on the ground of a dirty ass Waffle House floor. Right, just again, no regard. And these young people's lives have been changed. She was dismissed from her job. Her employer said, "You got too much."
They were trying to charge her.
No, not trying to. Still, we showed up in Saraland, Alabama, to deliver 50,000 petitions with Color of Change, who we're working with both Anthony and Chiquisha. 50,000 petitions signed by people across the country saying this is ludicrous.
They fired
both
her?
have. Her company fired her.
Wow.
And Anthony's been on medical leave and just went back to work, and that might be a challenging situation for him. Again, if we only think about the physical disability. They both also have criminal charges, misdemeanor charges. Everybody at Waffle House has gone on about their business. These police officers, fine, back in these streets.
They should have been charged with
being
sexual
racist.
assault. You can't even
These
go to
two
the
have
airport.
charges.
You can't even go to the airport. When you go to the airport and there's a woman going through, they say you got to wait for a female to come.
That's right.
Search the woman. So why would they be able to do that to that young lady?
Again, Saraland, Alabama. We were there for less than 20 minutes before people circled the van that we were in, called us niggers, domestic terrorists, to your point, using the dog whistle that they're getting from Klan president. And then came back to try and intimidate us. We delivered their petitions to the city attorney. This is a man who should be elected but was appointed by the mayor, right? Who has a contractual relationship with the police department, who literally wrote essays telling police officers how to get off with killing black bodies.
Wow.
We delivered these petitions to him, 50,000 people. Just drop these charges, right? And the reality is we could have paid for it on site, but it's the principle. This is about her record and what it means for her to show up as a citizen in this town. This man said, repeatedly, I decline comment. One of the reporters asked him, will you denounce the actions of the police department? And he said, absolutely not.
Damn.
Yikes.
Right. So to be clear.
Really doesn't see us as human beings.
No, these are, not only does he not see us as human beings, he doesn't see us as citizens. Right. It is not his obligation to protect somebody who is a citizen in the county that he is sworn to protect.
David, I want to ask you, did you see that video of the landscaper that was working and his mom was there with him and a woman just came from across the street and started calling him a rapist and a Mexican and saying,
oh, yeah,
and
he's
Trump,
responding to her.
Yeah, and he just filmed it and he didn't get
trying
aggressive,
to have a conversation.
But she was trying to really bait him and he was saying, who have I raped?
Yeah,
so on and so
what
forth.
drugs have I sold?
How do people, in a situation like that, because we had this discussion this morning, right? How should you react? It's hard to be...
Let one of the women in your life slap the hell out of her.
It's hard to be calm and peaceful in a situation and not really go off, but at the same time, you know that's what she wants.
Yeah.
You know?
Listen, I pray that we can all have that kind of restraint in that moment. And there's another video of a black boy who looked like he was on a skateboard and rode past a white man who ended up trying to swing on him. And the dude ended up the black brother ended up restraining himself, although it was clear that he could have just stepped back and popped him one. And then the white man ended up getting arrested, which is something that we never see. Don't know what happened to him in the end, but the point again for me was that, like, it is really important to try and practice self-restraint. Right. Now, I can be petty sometimes. I can also pop off. What I know is that as a descendant of people who have carried trauma in their DNA, we have to find some way to let it out. And so I think it's really important for us to have a circle of friends that we can hit on the WhatsApp, like, this crazy shit happened to me. You should also have friends that have bail money and know that if something happens, how to get to you, right? But the last thing, I say this in all seriousness, as we think about everything that we've been talking about today, we got to go to church, but we also have to go to doctor, right? Like, it is important for us. I think every person of color should have a therapist, should work on ensuring that their mental health is intact, because it's hard as hell to be a person of color in America today, right? I think often about James Baldwin and to be Black and relatively conscious in America is to almost always be in a constant state of rage. And for anybody who is relatively woke now, you should always be pissed off. Like, there's just so much to be mad at. So I just think it's really important for us to think about our mental health.
Do you feel hopeful at all with local elections and seeing what's happening with more people stepping up to the plate to run for office?
Absolutely.
And support those candidates?
Absolutely. I was at the DNC's LGBTQ gala last night at the Ziegfeld Ballroom, in part to celebrate the number of non-traditional, is what we'll continue to call them until that changes, because language matters and we should be past that, but non-traditional candidates. So there are so many more women who are running, young people who are running, LGBTQ in particular, trans people, gender non-conforming people who are running.
We're like
That's
here.
exactly right. People who understand that our country is and has been as strong as it is because of its diversity. And people who are willing to step up in spite of all of this shit that is going on in our geopolitical environment to try and change things. So I'm happy about that. I'm also happy that there are folks stepping up to fund races, right? Folks like Quinn and Stephanie with the Collective PAC, who've contributed to a lot of races, including my brother Andrew Gillum, who I know is here, who's doing great things, who should be the next governor of Florida. So there are people on both sides. And then there are also people who now understand the importance of policy. This is one of the reasons I'm so happy that Angela's continuing to blaze trails, is that before President Obama was in office, there were a very small crew of us, Black folks who were policy professionals, literally crafting policy on Capitol Hill. I spent 6 years in the U.S. Senate on the HELP Committee, Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. It was chaired by Ted Kennedy at one point. It's the committee that passed the Affordable Care Act or No Child Left Behind. Lots of bills that I'm sure affect people in this room right now. And for most of that time, I was the only Black person. I was the only person who literally had relationships with members of the communities that we were writing laws that would be affected. And it was my ability to cut through a lot of the bullshit, which is to say, right, like a lot of those folks have PhDs or MDs and can quote the theory. My ability to say that's cute in theory, but this is the reality, was a thing that changed a lot of the dynamics and a lot of the negotiations. And so my hope is that not only will people continue to run, but people will pursue policy opportunities to learn how to shape the actual laws that affect us at every level.
All right, my man David Johns, Executive Director of the National Black Justice Coalition. National HIV Testing Day is tomorrow.
Yes,
we'll be at Juices for Life in Brooklyn from 2 to 7.
Yes.
So come get tested for free. I'll be there. I'll be getting tested as well, right along with y'all. So I'm going to start making my list tonight.
Where can they find you, man? Your Twitters and Instagram and all
yes,
that
you can find me at Mr. David Johns across platforms. I also use the hashtag Teach the Babies all the time. Once an educator, always an educator. Or you can follow us at NBJC on the Move.
Thank you. Always appreciate you. This is great. I appreciate you for coming through and for partnering up, and I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. Thank you for having me. Both.
It's David Johns, The Breakfast Club.